Unit-1 Constitutional Provisions for Educations, Block-1 Constitutional Provisions and Policy Perspectives. BESC-132 Structure and Management of Education. Semester 2. Bachelor of Arts, BAG. Bachelor's Degree Programs. School of Education, SOE. IGNOU Audiobooks IGNOU Audiobooks. Indira Gandhi National Open University. 1.1 Introduction. When India got independence in 1947, there were many questions in the air. How will India emerge as a democratic republic? What will the future of democracy? How will it prepare its future generations for becoming the citizens of country? And to answer many such questions, India adopted its constitution on January 26, 1950. Our constitution has taken care all the issues and challenges emerged at that time and also has provisions of rectifications, additions, deletions, whenever required for the benefit of its citizens. There are provisions for almost all sections of the society and all the important aspects have been included in it, and education is one of these. If you try to analyze provisions made in Constitution of India and their implications on education, you need to start from the preamble of the Constitution itself. All the fundamental core values of the Constitution could be achieved through education. The unit will start with a discussion on core values of our Constitution and their educational implications. At many places in our constitutions, there are articles addressing the issues related to education. All such important articles have been discussed in this unit. Education was not a fundamental right for long. In the year 2009, it was made a fundamental right. Unit will also highlight its provisions. Citizens of India have rights which ensure dignity being a human. Our constitution has several provisions to ensure human rights, based on which bodies like NCPCR are functioning. Role of such bodies will also be discussed in the unit. Also, various constitutional provisions to ensure the rights of people with disabilities and acts associated to it will be explained. 1.2 Objectives. After going through the unit, you will be able to explain the implications of core values of the Constitution for education. Identify the articles in Indian constitutions related to education. Highlight important provisions of RTE Act 2009. Analyze the role of NCPCR and SCPCR in ensuring child's rights, and critically reflect on implications of constitutional provisions for promoting education of persons with disabilities. Look at the screen. 1.3 Preamble of the Constitution. The preamble of Indian Constitution is the soul of independent India. If you read the preamble and try to analyze it, you will not find any reason to disagree with this statement. Our Constitution is here to ensure that all the people of India are considered equal. All have equal rights to express themselves without fear and prejudices. All have equal access to justice and all have equal rights to access the opportunities along with provisions of equity to facilitate those who need it. You can say, equality and equity are among key core values of our Constitution. Let us begin our discussion with dimensions of equality to ensure equal rights and opportunities for everyone. 1st March 2001 Striving for equality. The struggle for freedom from British rule included within it the struggle of large groups of people, who not only fought against the British but also fought to be treated more equally. Dalit, women, Tiavanbiles and peasants fought against the inequalities they experienced in their lives. When India became an independent nation in 1947, our leaders too were concerned about different kinds of inequalities that existed. Those who wrote the Constitution of India, a document that laid out the rules by which the nation would function, were aware of the ways in which discrimination had been practiced in our society and how people had struggled against this. So these leaders set out a vision and goals in the Constitution to ensure that all the people of India were considered equal. This equality of all persons is seen as a key value that unites us all as Indians. Everyone has equal rights and opportunities. What makes people equal? We will focus on the dimensions of equality which need to be addressed to ensure equal rights and opportunities for everyone. Dimensions of equality. While identifying different kinds of inequalities that exist in society, various thinkers and their ideologies have highlighted three main dimensions of equality, namely, political, social, and economic. It is only by addressing each of these three different dimensions of equality can we move towards a more just and equal society. Political equality. In democratic societies, political equality would normally include granting equal citizenship to all the members of the state and granting rights which are considered necessary to enable citizens to develop themselves and participate in the affairs of the state. These are legal rights, guaranteed by the Constitution and laws. Their Cent Right to Education Act, 2009, is an example of a fundamental and legal right. We will discuss about it in detail in upcoming sections of this unit. Social equality. Political equality or equality before the law is an important step in the pursuit of equality, but it often needs to be supplemented by equality of opportunity. While the former is necessary to remove any legal hurdles which might exclude people from a voice in government and deny them access to available social goods, the pursuit of equality requires that people belonging to different groups and communities also have a fair and equal chance to compete for those goods and opportunities. For this, it is necessary to minimize the effects of social and economic inequalities and guarantee certain minimum conditions of life to all the members of the society. Adequate health care, the opportunity for good education, adequate nourishment, and a minimum wage, among other things. It is here that education assumes a significant role in the absence of such facilities. It is exceedingly difficult for all the members of the society to compete on equal terms. Where equality of opportunity does not exist, a huge pool of potential talent tends to be wasted in a society. In India, a special problem regarding equal opportunities comes not just from lack of facilities but from some of the customs which may prevail in different parts of country or among different groups. Women, for instance, may even be discouraged from going in for school and higher education. In such cases, the role of the state has been to offer equal legal rights to all, to make policies to prevent discrimination or harassment of women in schools or employment, to provide incentives to open up education or certain professions to women, and other such measures. Economic equality. At the simplest level, we would say that economic inequality exists in a society if there are significant differences in wealth, property or income between individuals or classes. Most democracies today try to make equal opportunities available to people in the belief that this would at least give those who have talent and determination the chance to improve their economic condition. 1 March 2002 Education and Equality. being cognizant of the deep-rooted inequalities in Indian society, the founding fathers of the Indian Constitution were quite conscious of the limitation of political democracy. This is amply clear from Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's final address to the Constituent Assembly of India on 25 November 1949. He said, "Democracy without equality and fraternity. On the social plane, we have in India a society based on the principles of graded inequality, which means elevation of some and degradation of others. On the economic plane, we have a society in which there are some who have immense wealth as against many who live in abject poverty. On the 26th January 1950, we are going to enter into a life of contradictions. In politics, we will have equality, and in social and economic life we will have inequality. In politics, we will be recognizing the principle of one man, one vote, and one vote, one value. In our social and economic life, we shall, by reason of our social and economic structure, continue to deny the principle of one man, one value. How long shall we continue to live this life of contradictions? How long shall we continue to deny equality in our social and economic life? If we continue to deny it for long, we will do so only by putting our political democracy in peril. We must remove this contradiction at the earliest possible moment, or else those who suffer from inequality will blow up the structure of political democracy. Therefore, he mentioned, what we must do is not to be content with mere political democracy. We must make our political democracy a social democracy as well. Political democracy cannot last unless there lies at the base of its social democracy. What does social democracy mean? It means a way of life which recognizes liberty, equality, and fraternity as the principles of life. These principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity are not to be treated as separate items in a trinity. They form a union of trinity in the sense that to divorce one from the other is to defeat the very purpose of democracy. Liberty cannot be divorced from equality, equality cannot be divorced from liberty, nor can liberty and equality be divorced from fraternity. Without equality, liberty would produce the supremacy of the few over the many. Equality without liberty would kill individual initiative. Without fraternity, liberty and equality could not become a natural course of things. It would require a constable to enforce them. Education is assigned a revolutionary role in Ambedkar's concept of social progress and in his vision of a just and equal society. Education for the socially oppressed and access to education has been a focal point in his struggle for equity and social justice. This vision for education in the emancipation of socially deprived people of India is adequately expressed in his words. Coming as I do from the lowest order of the Hindu society, I knew what is the value of education. The problem of raising the lower order is deemed to be economic. This is a great mistake. The problem of raising the lower order in India is not to feed them, to clothe them and make them serve the higher order. The problem is to remove from them that inferiority complex which has stunted their growth, to create in them the consciousness of the significance of their lives, for them and for the country, of which they have been cruelly robbed by the existing order. Nothing can achieve this except the spread of education. This, in my opinion, is the panacea of our social troubles. Not only Ambedkar, we find movements to abolish the caste system and end discrimination all over the world have always proposed education as the primary means to overcome oppression. Ambedkar, 1993. On the one hand, education is expected to maintain hallowed traditions, respect for authority, obedience to the law, patriotism, and the like. On the other hand, education is expected to promote political, economic, and social development and change. The issue of equality of educational access through expansion, equal opportunity, and the possibility of achieving social equality through education has been debated for a long time. The relationship between social change and education is complex and critical. Therefore, disregard of equal educational opportunity may endanger the potential of social change through education. What is the social change we are talking about? What is the significance of education? Why is it important to ensure enrollment to and completion of schooling? Why is it so important to close the educational gaps and to remove the enormous disparities educational access, inclusion and achievement? The significance of education is articulated by Amartya Sen in the following words: for making the world more secure and fair. When people are illiterate, their ability to understand and invoke their legal rights can be very limited, leading to their alienation. Women's security is linked to their ability to read and write. Illiteracy leads to low level of political participation and inability to express demands. Health problems and epidemics are better dealt with by people who are educated, and women's well-being and respect are strongly influenced by their literacy and educated decision-making within and outside the house. It is indeed evident that education helps an individual and the society to transform in many ways. It is therefore important that quality educational opportunities are made accessible to every child in the school-going age. It is only when all children, irrespective of caste, religion, gender, or class, can get educated as per their fullest potential can we expect social change. Providing opportunities to education is, however, not enough. The important role played by the curriculum, both hidden and explicit, also plays a role in bringing the desired socio-economic change. Our constitution makers were cognizant of the role education could play in creating an equitable society. That is why education has been assigned an important position and role in the Constitution. In fact, free and compulsory education has now become a fundamental right. 1.4 Fundamental Rights and Education. Consider the following situation. Vimla lives in a village close to Delhi and earns her living by doing households chores. She has 2 daughters and she is very keen to admit them to school. She feels that if they are educated, they will not have to spend their lives, like her, working in other people's houses. They will be able to stand on their feet by opting for a job of their choice. She takes them to a nearby English medium school, where her daughters are denied admission on the grounds that the parents are not educated, and since they come from a lower caste, the other parents might object to her daughter attending the same class as their children. Activity 1.1. Does the Constitution extend fundamental rights to a poor and uneducated woman like Vimla? Do you think Vimla's rights have been violated? What fundamental rights have been violated in this case? A democracy must ensure that individuals have certain rights and that the governments will always recognize these rights. During our freedom struggle, the leaders of the freedom movement had realized the importance of rights and demanded that the British rulers should respect rights of the people. There were no two opinions on the inclusion and protection of rights in the Constitution. The Constitution listed the rights that would be specially protected and called them fundamental rights. Fundamental rights of citizens given in the Constitution have established the spirit of equality and have helped to preserve individual liberty. These rights act as limitation, with certain exceptions, on the powers of the legislature and the executive. The following articles in the category of fundamental rights have a special bearing on education in India. Right to freedom, equality and liberty are the two rights that are most essential to a democracy. It is not possible to think one without thinking of the other. Article 14 strives for ensuring equality before law. It states, the state shall not deny to any person equality before law or equal protection of the laws within the territory of India. Modern states exercise powers over the individual. The right to equality is intended to ensure that the powers of the state are not used in any discriminatory way. In relation to education, it is invoked to regulate rules of admission, and thus it acts for ensuring reach of education to all. Article 15. This article guarantees prohibition of discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex or place of birth by the state. It also ensures equality in educational opportunities in India. Article 15. 4. Enabled the government to make special provisions for the advancement of backward classes including the scheduled castes, SCs, and scheduled tribes, STs. Article 16. 1. Guarantees equality of opportunity for all citizens in matters relating to employment or appointment to any office under state. Article 16. 4. The government can make reservations in favor of any backward class of the citizens. Article 21a. It grants right to free and compulsory education to all the children of the age 6 to 14 years in a manner as the state may, by law, determine. Inserted by the 86th Amendment in December 2002, this article has accorded education the status of right for ensuring quality in educational expansion at elementary level. At the commencement of the Constitution, education was included as a directive principles of the state policy in Article 45 under Part 4 of the Constitution. Article 24 states that no child below the age of 14 years shall be employed in work in any factory or mine or engaged in any hazardous employment. Article 28. The institutions run by the state will not preach any religion or give religious education, nor will they favor persons of any religion. This has been done to sustain and nurture the principle of secularism. Under provisions of this article, neither the state nor any other agency can impart religious instruction in any school wholly managed by state funds. However, there is an exemption for the institutions established under any trust or endowment which requires that religious education be imparted in such institutions. The article further provides that no person attending state-recognized and aided school can be compelled to take part in any religious instruction without parental consent. This implies that while institutions established by minority communities are eligible for grant in aid from the state, they cannot compel students to follow the religious instruction imparted in the institution. They are allowed to maintain their religious character without imposing their religious ideology on any unwilling student. Article 46 of the Constitution clearly states that the state shall promote with Special case the educational and economic interests of the weaker sections of the people, and, in particular, of the SCs and the STs, and shall protect them from social injustice and all forms of 1.5 cultural and educational rights of the minorities. In a democratic country like India, where people are divided in terms of religion, language, caste, race, culture and socio-economic factors, one of the tasks of the framers of the Constitution of India was to devise safeguards for the country's different minorities. The aspirations of minorities, their specific identity and rights, were often suppressed under the pretext of majority decision. In such a situations, specific consideration of minorities was a prerequisite of democracy. Article 29 of the Constitution of India provides explicit guarantees for protecting the interests of minorities. 1. Any section of the citizens residing in the territory of India or any part there, of having a distinct language, script or culture of its own shall have the right to conserve the same. 2. No citizen shall be denied admission into any educational institution maintained by the state or receiving aid out of state funds on the grounds only of religion, race, caste, language or any of them. Having stated the right of minority people to maintain their own language and culture, the Constitution adds on the explicit protection of the rights of minorities to provide their own education in their own language, certainly an important part of language maintenance.
You are listening to this audiobook on Audio Learning IGNOU. Article 30 details this right along with protection against discrimination in the receiving of government grants for education are as follows. 1. All minorities, whether based on religion or language, shall have the right to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice. 1a. In making any law providing for the compulsory acquisition of any property of any educational institution established and administered by a minority, referred to in Clause 1, the state shall ensure that the amount fixed by or determined under such law for the acquisition of such property is such as would not restrict or abrogate the right guaranteed under that clause. The state shall not, in granting aid to educational institutions, discriminate against any educational institution on the ground that it is under the management of a minority, whether based on religion or language. This final clause does not keep the state from regulating for educational standards, but does protect against regulations concerning medium of instruction, a provision for minorities that has also been upheld in the courts. Besides these general safeguards, the Indian Constitution includes a section titled Special Directives where language and education issues beyond simple protection for minorities are explicitly addressed. Article 350 guarantees the right of all people to use a language they understand in representations for redress of grievances. In the 7th Amendment to the Constitution made by the Constitution Act of 1956, 2 articles were added addressing linguistic minority issues. Article 350A Facilities for instruction in mother tongue at primary stage. It shall be the endeavor of every state and of every local authority within the state to provide adequate facilities for instruction in the mother tongue at the primary stage of education to children belonging to linguistic minority groups, and the President may issue such directions to any state as he considers necessary or proper for securing the provision of such facilities. Article 350b, Special Officer for Linguistic Minorities. 1. There shall be a special officer for linguistic minorities to be appointed by the President. 2. It shall be the duty of the special officer to investigate all matters relating to the safeguards provided for linguistic minorities under this Constitution and report to the President upon those matters at such intervals as the President may direct, and the President shall cause all such reports to be laid before each House of Parliament, and sent to the governments of the states concerned. 1.6 Directive Principles of State Policy and Education. The makers of our constitution knew that independent India was going to face many challenges. Foremost among these was the challenge of bringing about equality and well-being of all citizens. They also thought that certain policy direction was required for handling these problems. At the same time, the constitution did not force future governments to be bound by certain policy decisions. Therefore, some guidelines were incorporated in the constitution, but they were not made legally enforceable. It thought that the moral force behind these guidelines would ensure that the government would take them seriously. The chapter on directive principles lists mainly three things: the goals and objectives that we as a society should adopt, certain rights that individuals should enjoy apart from the fundamental rights, and certain policies that the government should adopt. Directive principles of state policy are included in Articles 36 to 51 in Part 4 of the Constitution. There are three guiding provisions under this category which provide the basic framework for national policies and priorities in education. These are: Article 41, it directs the state to make effective provision for securing the right to work and right to education for all within the limits of its economic capacities and development. Article 45 being a very significant article in the Directive Principles, this article laid down the foundation of free and compulsory education in the country. Before 86th Constitutional Amendment, this article has stated that the state shall endeavor to provide, within a period of 10 years from the commencement of this Constitution, for free and compulsory education for all children until they complete the age of 14 years. Consequent upon the insertion of Article 21A, making elementary education a fundamental right of all children between the age group of 6 to 14 years, Article 45 has been amended so as to restrict its scope to pre-primary education up to 6 years of age. No article in the Constitution works in isolation. The same is true for Article 45. It ensures equality of educational opportunity to all on the lines of Article 29(2), according to which admissions cannot be denied to anyone on the basis of race, caste, language in any institution maintained by the state. Article 21(a), which makes free and compulsory education to all as fundamental right, attaches utmost importance to Article 45. Also, the 5 articles, 15, 29(2), L53, 46 and 29(1) entrust responsibility of equalization of educational opportunity in all parts of the country to the Government of India, and to that end, to give special assistance to backward areas or states. Article 46. It says the state shall promote with special care the educational and economic interests of the weaker sections of the people, in particular of the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes, and shall protect them from social injustice and all forms of exploitation. Thus, Article 46 along with other relevant articles pertaining to education ensures equality in educational opportunities, even by making special provisions for those who have been left behind due to various reasons. It is possible to see both fundamental rights and directive principles as complementary to each other. Fundamental rights restrain the government from doing certain things, while directive principles exhort the government to do certain things. Fundamental rights mainly protect the rights of individuals, while directive principles ensure the well-being of the entire society. 1.7 Language policy. For the writers of the Constitution, respect for diversity meant ensuring that people have the freedom of speak their language and that no one language should become compulsory for all to follow. 1.7.1 Medium of instruction. India being a multilingual society, a uniform medium of instruction was not found practically viable. The importance of mother tongue for maximizing reach of education was recognized. Article 354, in the Constitution of India, in this context, recommends that it shall be the endeavor of the state to provide adequate facilities for instruction in the mother tongue at the primary stage of education to children belonging to linguistic minority groups, and the President may issue such directions to any state as he considers necessary or proper for securing the provisions of such facilities. The language policy, which emerged as a political consensus in the formative years of independence, is an illustration of democratic processes in the Indian context. The three-language formula emerged as a policy or a strategy after a quarter of a century of debate and deliberations from political and academic perspectives by educational advisory bodies and politicians representing national and regional interests. The Central Advisory Board on Education, CABE, the oldest statutory body on education in India, initiated the discussion on languages in school education in the 1940s, and this continued to be a major concern in their discussions until 1960. CABE identified 5 major issues which required attention. 1. The number of languages to be taught at various levels of school education. 2. Introduction of second and third languages. 3. Place and role of English. 4. Place and role of Hindi. And 5. Teaching of Sanskrit and minor languages in school. 1.7.23 Language Formula. A comprehensive view of the study of languages at school was undertaken and concrete recommendations were made by the Education Commission, 1964-66. The Commission, having taken account of the diversity of the Indian context, recommended a modified or graduated three-language formula. 1. The mother tongue or the regional language. 2. The official language of the Union or the associate official language of the Union so long as it exists. And 3. A modern Indian or foreign language not covered under 1 and 2 and other than that used as the medium of instruction. The Commission's observation on the status and role of English is of importance from the point of view of language planning and the way the language was also perceived by policy planners. The NPE, 1986, noted that the regional languages are already in use at the primary and secondary stages. At the secondary stage, the state governments should adopt and vigorously implement the three-language formula, which includes the study of a modern Indian language, preferably one of the southern languages, apart from Hindi and English in the Hindi-speaking states, and of Hindi along with the regional language and English in the non-Hindi speaking states. National Education Policy, 2020, has also advocated use of mother tongue/local language/regional language as medium of instruction at school level. In point no. 4.13 of NEP 2020, it is mentioned that the three-language formula will continue to be implemented while keeping in mind the constitutional provisions, aspirations of the people, regions, and the Union, and the need to promote multilingualism as well as promote national unity. However, there will be a greater flexibility in the three-language formula, and no language will be imposed on any state. The three languages learned by children will be the choices of states, regions, and of course the students themselves, so long as at least 2 of the 3 languages are native to India. NEP P. 14. 1.8. The federal structure. The Constitution declared India was a union of states, and the Indian Union is based on the principles of federalism. The Constitution originally suggested a 2-tier system of governments, the union government, or what we call the central government, representing the Union of India, and the state governments. Later, a third tier of federation was added in the form of panchayats and municipalities. The Constitution clearly provided a threefold distribution of legislative powers between the union government and state government. Thus, it contains 3 lists such as union, state, and concurrent list. 1.8.1 Division and decentralization of powers. There is a trifurcation of legislative powers in India. The 7th schedule of the Constitution contains 3 lists: the Union list with 99 entries, which include subjects of national importance, defense, foreign affairs, banking, etc. in respect of which the Parliament has exclusive powers to legislate. The state list with 61 entries contains subjects of state and local importance, police, trade, commerce, agriculture, in respect of which state legislature has exclusive powers to make laws, and a concurrent list with 52 entries includes subjects of common interest where both central and state governments have legislative powers. Supremacy of the central government prevails in case of conflict between central and state legislation. Education appears in all the three lists. Union list. Out of 99 entries included in the Union list, 6 entries pertain to education. These are: Entry 13, Educational and Cultural Relations with Foreign Countries. Entry 62, Institutions of National Importance like National Library, the Indian Museum, the Imperial War Memorial, the Victoria Memorial and the Indian War Memorial. Any other institution like these wholly or partly financed by government and legally declared as institution of national importance. Entry 63. The institutions known at the commencement of this constitution as Banaras Hindu University, Aligarh Muslim University and Delhi University, and any other institution legally declared as institution of national importance. Entry 64. Institution of scientific or technical education partly or wholly financed by the government and legally declared as the institution of national importance. Entry 65. Union agencies and institutions for a. Professional, vocational or technical training, including the training of police officers, b. The promotion of special studies or research, and c. Scientific or technical assistance in the investigation or detection of crime. Entry 66. Coordination and determination of standards in institutions of higher education and research, and scientific and technical institutions. State list. 2 out of 61 items enlisted in the state list pertain to education. Entry 11. It lays down that education including universities, subject to the provisions of entries 63, 64, 65 and 66 of the Union list and entry 25 of the concurrent list, should be state subject.